Hello and welcome to this short video, Honey. My name's Andy Bowles, I'm a food lawyer. Now this is the 22nd in a series of 100 short videos I'm recording on UK food law topics. Now you might be watching this as part of our online training service, in which case you'll have access to a whole range of resources, including the presentation that's shown behind me, but also an additional webinar that's about an hour long and obviously goes into a lot more detail. But if you're watching on our YouTube channel, you are of course very welcome. Okay, so honey. What is honey? Well, it's obviously a natural product produced by a honeybee, but it can be actually produced from three separate sources. Directly from the nectar of plants is one, the secretions of living plants or parts of plants is the other, and excretions of plant-sucking insects on the living parts of plants is the third one. So, blossom honey, or nectar honey, is the honey which comes from the nectars of plants themselves. Whereas honeydew honey is the honey which comes from the excretions of plant-sucking insects, or the living parts of plants, or the secretions of living parts of plants. So what is honey? Honey is mostly sugar, and it consists of different sugars, but predominantly glucose and fructose. But there are lots of other things in there. We have organic acids and enzymes and various other particles and solids. The honey colour can vary. You can get almost colourless honey to very almost treacle-like dark brown honey. Consistency, it can be fluid, it can be crystalline. And the flavour can vary enormously. It's actually the nature of the plant origin, that will typically determine the flavour of the honey itself. Moisture content is a big issue with honey, and the regulations set out criteria for the moisture content. It's typically around 20%. I mean, there are some exceptions to that. The reason for that is the greater the moisture content, then the more prone that the honey is to fermentation. So clearly that will result in spoilage of the product. Now the honey regs are food standards regs, so they set out standards for composition and labelling. And as part of the labelling, we use the well-trodden path of use of reserved descriptions. Now what that means is, if you call honey by one of these names, then it must meet certain criteria. So you have the general term of honey, but you have other ones in there. You can see a long list. Baker's honey, for example. The baker's honey is the sort of honey that will be used in industries. It's sort of a fermented product. It's one that wouldn't be that great to spread onto your toast in the morning, but would be perfectly adequate to be used, for example, in making honey granola bars or making in breakfast cereal type manufacture. So it's a sort of different grade. Then you have things like comb honey, which obviously has honeycomb in it, and various filtered, extracted, and so forth. Each of those terms, each of these reserved descriptions in law will have a definition, and that definition must be met in order for that name to be used. If the definition is met, then the name must be used. So the compositional requirements are set out in the regulation as well. So it's labelling and composition. The key issue with honey is that there are no permitted added ingredients, including additives. It's a purity issue. Honey should be placed on the market in a pure form. It should be free from foreign matters. The regs will set out standards for things like sugar content and moisture content. Remember, the moisture content is more of a quality issue to ensure that the product doesn't ferment. We have various other bits and bobs in there, which again are quality criteria, but are set out in the regs. So, for example, we have water insoluble content, electrical conductivity, free acid, and diastase activity, which is an enzyme activity, and again is an indicator of the quality of the honey. In terms of honey labelling, I've already mentioned the fact the name must be used. We have reserved descriptions, so whether it's blossom honey, baker's honey, honey. If you're marketing honey, you can of course refer to the plant origin of the honey, if that is predominantly the flower that the honey is being produced from. So you could have something like lavender honey. You can also put in a geographical indication as long as it is accurate. So we could have Norfolk lavender honey. But the honey is clearly the reserved description. If the other bits are added, then they must be not misleading and accurate. There is also additional origin labelling requirements, and these have changed since the United Kingdom left the European Union. But we're at the position now in England and Wales where if you've got blends of honey, so you're using different honeys from different regions, then it should have something on the label to the effect of blend of honeys from more than one country, or similar wording. The wording doesn't have to be precisely that, or else it can actually specifically mention the countries that the honey has originated from. There is another issue with honey. There is the link with infant botulism, which is, but it's not, when you think of botulism, one thinks of food poisoning, and of course there are videos on Clostridium botulinum. It is Clostridium botulinum that is the cause of infant botulism, but it's a slightly different thing. It's if infants consume honey, there is the potential for Clostridium botulinum spores to be present in the honey. Now, if an adult eats that honey, it has no effect. If you have watched my other videos, you'll know with Clostridium botulinum, the issue is the ingestion of neurotoxin, not the bacteria itself. So the ingestion of a few Clostridium botulinum spores is not going to cause any damage. But to infants, the spores can actually get into the the newly formed gut and can germinate within there, causing quite a problem with the young child. So there are some voluntary labelling schemes available. One promoted by the Food Standards Agency, suggesting that honey should be marketed with the wording "honey should not be given to infants under 12 months of age" written on the label. The British Honey Importers and Packers Association Code of Practice advises slightly different wording, but it's the same meaning. It just says unsuitable for children under 12 months. So if placing on the market jars of honey, then you need to make sure that there is this, it's voluntary, but I think as a food safety issue, one should really be encouraged to put that on the label, the infant warning. Okay, so there we are. That's just a quick trot through the rules for honey. That was just 1 out of 100. There are 99 other videos you can watch either on the YouTube channel or as part of our online training service. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you'll join me on another video. Cheers.